Look at this picture. Why do you think this became such a popular meme? The answer is because of its relatability. We can all relate to living life, not focusing on important things or denying that they need our attention. That's exactly what procrastination is. You just sit there saying this is fine when you know it's not. Still, even if we consciously understand that procrastinating on important things like schoolwork, regular work, building good habits, learning and improving is not good, we still do it. But why do we do it, and are there any solutions to this problem? In this video, I'll cover the potential reasons why you procrastinate and also provide strategies to overcome this uncomfortable state of being. Before I get into ways to stop procrastinating, we need to understand why we procrastinate in the first place. I think it boils down to three major things. Number one is that you are overstimulated and have learned to act only when there is a reward. There's a reason why we seem to not procrastinate on things like playing video games, scrolling on social media, watching movies and TV shows, consuming porn, junk food, and so on. These things are extremely pleasurable and usually easy to get. As sophisticated as we might think we are, at our core, we're still animals and our basic instincts of survival are still there. That's why our brain likes to motivate us to play a few more games instead of going to sleep when we need to. This motivation from the brain, from a neuroscience perspective, comes from a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is responsible for motivation and rewards that come from that motivation. When you release a lot of dopamine, you feel really good, and the mentioned instant gratification activities give exactly that. This results in overstimulation, which further results in the inability to do more difficult but more important tasks. So what happens when we are overstimulated? We learn to associate any activity to do with some kind of reward. We can't begin to write that essay for school or get that form filled for work unless we have something pleasurable to have after. This thinking actually backfires, as it only makes the already uncomfortable activity more uncomfortable and painful to do. Here's what neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has to say about it.
And because the reward comes at the end, we start to dissociate the neural circuits for dopamine and reward that would have normally been active during the activity. And because it all arrives at the end, over time, we have the experience of less and less pleasure from that particular activity while we're doing it. We can't be in a mode of simply being focused on the finish line. Very few people can do that over long periods of time in a way that's effective.
So the key is not to expect a reward and in turn lower your stimulation levels. Now, the second reason for why we procrastinate is that we often don't have a strong reason for doing the activity we need to do. Having a vision for doing something is not the same as gaining a reward for doing the activity. Rewards are short term, while reaching goals are long term. Think about why you play video games as an example. The reason why is most likely that it's fun, engaging, and seemingly rewarding. Those reasons are exactly why you love video games so much, or rather why your mentioned survivalist brain loves them. Now think about a goal that you want to achieve, but are not able to because of procrastination. Why do you want to achieve it? Perhaps you will notice that the reason itself is not as strong as the reason for playing video games or engaging in other instant gratification sources. Playing video games, it's obvious. It's short-term rewards. You get a ton of dopamine and a ton of stimulation. However, when it comes to goals and important tasks, you can't have that same mentality as pleasurable activities. You need to figure out strong reasons for doing the thing long-term. For example, right now, some of my goals, I realize that I'm turning 35, so that's time to really start thinking about buying a home, buying a car, just moving forward in my life in ways that I guess I wasn't really thinking as much about when I was in my early 20s. But now I'm really having to think about how will I support the family and how will I have the finances to send kids to college and just these other things. And that's really made me look at specifically how I can be so much more consistent in my work every day this year. So you'll notice that videos on this channel have been going out regularly, at least 2 times a week over the last couple of months. And if you've been following the YouTube channel for a long time, that's something I've really struggled with for many, many years. And this year, being consistent with the channel was one of the strategies that I've put forward because of a stronger why, which is I need to be able to support the family here in the next couple of years. And that means that I have to get over some of my weaknesses when it comes to work, which primarily is consistency. And, I think that's such an important theme when it comes to this video on procrastination, because often I would procrastinate doing videos, and that procrastination would sometimes just be a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or, if you've been following for a long time, sometimes that could be many months, or there were periods where I wasn't even putting out regular videos throughout the whole year. And so I've really had to overcome this feeling of procrastination, and that started with having a deeper reason why. Now, the last major thing that puts you in a state of constant procrastination is that you associate things you need to be doing with negative emotions. As already mentioned, when you expect a reward from an activity that is difficult to do, you experience more pain and discomfort to do that activity, in turn, experiencing more negative emotions. If you always learn to associate productive and necessary activities with negativity and things like video games with positivity, of course, you will procrastinate. Personally, I love the way my friend Andrew Kirby describes it here.
And because our brain innately doesn't like these negative emotions, whenever you feel a negative emotion about a task you should be doing, the brain again does one of two things. It either rationalizes it, it comes up with excuses for you to not do that thing, or it distracts you from the activity altogether by going towards some instant gratification activity like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, porn, gaming, something along those lines. Whatever it can do to minimize those negative emotions in the short run, the brain just views that as a great thing, and this obviously leads to procrastination.
So this is where the saying starting is half the work comes from. You experience negative emotions before you even begin to do something you need, and that causes you to procrastinate. All right, so we looked at 3 potential reasons for procrastination, and I'm betting that at least one of these helped you understand more about why you do it. Now let's move on to some practical ways to actually beat this procrastination. So if we start off with the overstimulation and the learned behavior of doing something with only the reward in mind, the key to overcoming this reason is to do the opposite. Engage in less stimulation and view the hard activities as rewards themselves. You're actually building your character stronger by doing difficult things. Look at your life. What activities do you seem to gravitate towards when you are procrastinating? Perhaps when you should be working on something, you seem to grab your phone, jump on Steam, go eat something unhealthy, or watch movies. Whatever it is, you need to begin limiting these activities or actually quit them entirely. You need better boundaries. Overstimulation means that you gain less motivation from doing things that you would otherwise receive. For instance, detoxing from instant gratification sources will allow you to gain that motivation and pleasure from doing less engaging but more important tasks. You still receive the dopamine, you still receive the reward, but the source of it is different. Ultimately, it can actually come to the point that you gain a reward from just doing the difficult thing itself and not expecting something afterwards. For me, recording this video today is the reward itself. Creating that mentality that the process of the activity itself is enjoyable and rewarding and not what comes after, even though it might seem like you might be lying to yourself, is the foundation of creating this new anti-procrastination behavior and beginning to associate positive emotions with productivity. For the long-term success of not procrastinating anymore, you need to create a strong why, or reasons behind your goal. Now, this is very subjective and will differ from person to person. Just try to find an answer to this question. Why do I want to be productive on this activity? What will I gain in the long term if I don't procrastinate and achieve it? How can I create more positive emotions for the activity to outweigh the negative ones? Now, practically, for the last question, how do you create more positive emotions for the activity? For me, I often use music either to get more pumped up prior to the activity or even during it. When I was writing the script for this video, I was listening to a BBC One Essential mix, and that really made me have a lot more energy to work. As the last piece of advice, you can try the method Implementation Intentions by psychologist Peter Gallwitzer. I'll link his full paper on this in the description, but essentially it's a type of planning that involves creating a mental or written plan that outlines the specific steps a person will take in order to achieve a desired goal or behavior. Personally, I'd suggest using it in writing and not just remembering it in your mind. It involves specifying when, where, and how a particular behavior will be performed. This planning can greatly decrease the tendency to procrastinate and make it easier to follow through on each step, especially if you have a habit of getting lost in tasks, especially if you have ADHD. With all that said, dopamine and the rewards associated with it play the biggest role in motivation and procrastination. And in this video, I only scratched the surface of the science behind it. If you want to learn more about dopamine and how it interacts with motivation, desire, and pleasure, then check out this video.